I want you to picture a woman sitting in the back pew of a church she has never been to before, in a city she drove 4 hours to reach, at the funeral of a man she was told, 7 years ago, was already dead. She is dressed appropriately. She arrived early enough to choose her seat carefully, close enough to see clearly, far enough back to not be immediately recognized. She has a program in her hands, the kind they print for funerals, with a photograph on the front and the dates of a life on the inside. She is reading the dates. She is doing arithmetic in her head. She is thinking about 7 years of arithmetic she did alone, about court filings and support orders and the particular bureaucratic exhaustion of trying to collect money from a ghost. And she is looking at the man in the open casket at the front of the church, the man in the photograph on the program, and she is thinking one thing with absolute clarity. He is not dead. He has never been dead. And the woman sitting 3 rows ahead of her, crying into a handkerchief, has no idea that the widow she is performing grief for is not the first one. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I did with what I found out that afternoon, and what the lawyer said when I called her from the church parking lot. Stick around. This one is stranger than fiction and twice as satisfying. Welcome back to Blood and Backbone, where we talk about the moments families don't put in the holiday newsletter. If you're new here, these stories are dramatized for entertainment, but the particular exhaustion of being left holding everything while someone disappears, that part is real for more people than anyone wants to admit. If it's real for you too, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Let's call her Wren. 39 years old, a paralegal at a family law firm, which turns out to be a deeply relevant professional detail. Mother of a daughter named Iris who was 2 years old when her father walked out and 9 years old when this story ends. The father's name, the name on the original court documents anyway, was Dominic. 36 when he left, charming in retrospect in the specific way of people who deploy charm as a management tool rather than a genuine quality. The kind of man who was excellent at the beginning of things and deeply unreliable at the continuations. He and Wren had not been married, which is a relevant legal detail, and which meant that the process of establishing paternity, filing for support, and attempting to enforce the resulting order ran through family court rather than divorce proceedings, a distinction that matters because it affects the mechanisms available for enforcement and the degree of institutional patience extended to people who don't comply. Dominic did not comply. He made 2 payments in the first 4 months after the order was issued and then became progressively harder to locate, his employer reporting he had left, his last known address producing no answer, his phone disconnecting and reconnecting to different numbers that went unanswered. Wren, who worked for a family law firm and therefore had both the professional knowledge and the professional contacts to pursue this more aggressively than most people in her situation, pursued it aggressively. She filed contempt motions. She tracked employment records. She worked with a private investigator her firm occasionally used for exactly this kind of case. She did everything correctly and thoroughly and with considerably more expertise than the average abandoned parent, and Dominic, for approximately 2 years, managed to stay just ahead of every mechanism she deployed, moving between states in a pattern that suggested he understood exactly which steps would trigger enforcement actions and how much lead time he had before each one. Then, 26 months after the support order was issued, his mother called Wren. Not warmly. Dominic's mother, a woman named Sylvia, had never approved of Wren and had spent the duration of Wren and Dominic's relationship making this clear in the practiced way of a woman who had spent decades communicating disapproval through small gestures rather than direct statements. She called because she felt she had an obligation to inform Wren that Dominic had died. A car accident, she said, in another state. She had a death certificate. The case, she implied with considerable delicacy, was now closed. Wren said she was sorry for Sylvia's loss and got off the phone and sat at her desk for a long time. She was a paralegal at a family law firm. She had spent 2 years chasing a man through court systems across multiple states. She had a very particular relationship with documentary evidence and what it could and could not establish. She requested a copy of the death certificate through appropriate channels. She reviewed it with her supervising attorney, a woman named Gail who had 30 years of family law experience and who looked at the document with the specific expression of someone reading something that smells wrong before they can identify exactly which part smells wrong. There were irregularities. Not dramatic ones. Not obvious forgeries. But the kind of procedural inconsistencies that a paralegal at a family law firm and her supervising attorney with 30 years of experience would notice, and that suggested the document had not been produced through the standard process it claimed to represent. Gail told Wren to be careful, to document everything, and to keep her conclusions private while they were still preliminary. Wren agreed to all three of these things and then spent the next 4 years being careful and documenting everything and keeping her conclusions private while she continued to raise Iris alone and went to work every day and filed the support case as effectively dormant on paper while maintaining a private file that she updated whenever she had new information. She had a theory. The theory was that Dominic was not dead, had never been dead, had arranged or purchased or otherwise obtained a death certificate for reasons that were not complicated to understand given his circumstances, and was living somewhere under either his own name with manufactured distance from his past obligations or under a different name entirely. The theory was not provable for 4 years. Then a cousin of Dominic's, a woman Wren had met twice at family events before everything fell apart, sent her a Facebook message. The cousin, whose name was Tara, had been at a family gathering in another state and had seen someone she was almost certain was Dominic, older, different haircut, different name being used by the people he was with, but with a specific set of physical mannerisms and facial features that are very difficult to alter because they are not things people think about changing. She had not spoken to him directly. She had taken a photograph on her phone, from a distance, at an angle, the quality of which was not excellent but was sufficient. She sent it to Wren because, she said, she had a 7-year-old niece she had never met and she thought that was wrong. Wren looked at the photograph for a long time. Then she sent it to Gail. Then she contacted the private investigator. The investigation that followed took 8 months and produced, at its conclusion, a file that Wren has described as the most thoroughly documented thing she has ever been involved in professionally, which is a significant statement from a paralegal with 15 years of experience. Dominic was alive. He was living under a variation of his middle name in a city 4 hours from where Wren and Iris lived. He had a job, an apartment, and a woman he had apparently told he was a widower with no children, a description that was, by Wren's count, wrong on both counts simultaneously. He had, at some point in the 7 years since his supposed death, gotten legally married to this woman, which created a set of legal complications that Gail described as interesting in the tone of a lawyer who finds certain problems genuinely engaging. Wren's instructions to Gail were simple and had apparently been forming in her mind for somewhere between 4 years and 7 years depending on how you counted. She wanted every legal mechanism available deployed simultaneously. Not sequentially. Simultaneously. The fraud case. The child support arrears which had been accumulating at the original court-ordered rate for 7 years and now represented a number that Dominic would find significant. The bigamy question, which was a matter for a different set of authorities but which Gail confirmed could be flagged through appropriate channels. And the paternity and custody matter, which had never been fully resolved and which Wren now wanted formally addressed, not because she wanted Dominic in Iris's life, she did not, but because she wanted every legal connection between Dominic and his obligations formally, publicly, irrevocably established. She had one more instruction. She wanted to be present when the process server found him. Gail advised against this on general principles. Wren said she understood the advice and was going to be present anyway. The service happened at his workplace on a Tuesday afternoon. Wren waited in the parking lot in her car. She did not go inside. She was not there to cause a scene or to speak to him or to introduce herself to his co-workers or to do anything other than see, with her own eyes, the moment a man who had been dead for 7 years was handed a document confirming that the world knew he was alive. She saw it from 40 feet away through a car window. She has described the expression on his face, in the moment he looked up from the papers and scanned the parking lot and found her sitting there, as the most satisfying thing she has ever witnessed from a distance. She did not wave. She did not get out of the car. She started the engine and drove back to the city where she lived and stopped at the school and picked up Iris and took her out for pizza because it was a Tuesday and sometimes Tuesdays deserve pizza for no particular reason. The legal proceedings that followed were not quick. They lasted 14 months and involved more filings than Wren is willing to count. What they produced, at the end of those 14 months, was a judgment for the full 7 years of arrears plus interest, a formal fraud finding, a referral to state authorities on the bigamy matter, and a custody order that formally established Iris's legal relationship to her father while granting Wren sole physical and legal custody with no visitation rights for Dominic absent a separate future petition that he was welcome to file if he ever chose to. He has not filed it. The money from the arrears judgment arrived in portions over the following 2 years, enforced through wage garnishment and asset seizure mechanisms that Wren's firm was very good at deploying, because they had been deploying them for clients for years, and it turned out to be considerably more satisfying to deploy them on one's own behalf. Gail handled the case at a significantly reduced rate and has since described it, in professional settings, as one of the more rewarding matters of her career. Iris knows, at 9 years old, a version of the story appropriate to her age, which is that her father was not a good person but that her mother made sure she was taken care of and that the law worked the way it was supposed to work eventually. She has asked a few questions over the years that Wren has answered honestly within the limits of what a 9-year-old needs to know. She has not asked to meet him. Wren has made sure she knows the option exists when she is older, because Wren is the kind of parent who makes sure the options exist even when she hopes they won't be exercised. Dominic's second wife, the one he had told he was a widower with no children, left him within 3 months of the process service. Wren knows this through Tara, who has remained in occasional contact, and who described the second wife as a woman who had apparently required very little time to reach her conclusions once the full picture was available to her. Wren has no particular feelings about this. She has enough of her own life to generate feelings about without borrowing them from Dominic's. Here's what I keep coming back to with this one. Wren did not find Dominic through rage or obsession or the specific tunnel vision that betrayal can produce in people who let it. She found him through patience, professional competence, and a cousin who thought a 7-year-old deserved to exist in the world as a known and legally acknowledged person. She was careful. She documented everything. She deployed everything simultaneously. And she sat in a parking lot 40 feet away and watched, and then she went and got pizza with her daughter because her daughter was the point of the entire story, had always been the point, and sometimes the best thing you can do after 7 years of being methodical is get pizza on a Tuesday and let the machinery you set in motion do the rest. If this story hit close to home for you, drop a comment and tell me what you would have done differently, or what part of this one stayed with you. And if you want more stories like this one, I've got a new one coming this week. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next story.